Everyone always talks about the importance of training to failure, but what does that really mean? How do we define failure? There's lots of different definitions. There's muscular failure, meaning that the target muscle fails while you're performing a lift. There's form failure or technical failure, meaning that you're no longer able to execute the lift with a certain type of form or technique. There's task failure, meaning that you simply cannot complete the movement. There's cardiovascular failure. Maybe you're trying to do a 30 rep set on the leg press and your lungs give out before your legs do. And then of course there's types of psychological failure. Let's say you've had a really stressful day, you got fired from your job, you broke up with your partner, you show up at the gym and you fail your first set of bench on the third rep when usually you get 10. What is that? You still failed, you achieved failure, but your muscles clearly weren't the limiting factor. It was your mind. And so if we're seeking to train to failure, if we're trying to maximize muscle growth, what do we do with all these labels and definitions, and how should we train? Well, that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to explore this, and I'm going to tell you precisely what you need to do to ensure that your training is as effective as possible. Additionally, I'm also going to shine a spotlight on the powerlifter Dan Green, because Dan Green is known for grinding through reps and really getting the most out of his training. And I want to show you how he executes a set so you can apply his thinking and his performance to your own training. So let's dive in. This video is for educational entertainment purposes only. To begin, I just want to focus on the goal of maximizing muscle growth, on maximizing hypertrophy, because this is really where training to failure makes the most sense. For example, if you were playing basketball and you were trying to improve your free throw, you wouldn't shoot baskets until you were so tired that you couldn't make a single shot. That would be counterproductive. You would be ingraining bad habits, ingraining negative motor patterns, teaching yourself how to miss shots, not make them. And the same is true for strength training. If you're trying to increase your 1 rep max, you shouldn't just fail every single lift, because that's not going to teach you how to complete a lift. That's going to teach you how to fail a lift. But if the goal is to build the most muscle possible, training to failure often makes sense. And the reason for this is because failure training maximizes the stimulus you get out of a given set. Let me say this again. Failure training maximizes the stimulus you get out of a given set. Now, it's important to note that stimulus is not the same thing as adaptation or recovery. You can provide a stimulus and fail to adapt. You can provide a stimulus and fail to recover. However, again, training to failure on a set maximizes the stimulus of that given set in terms of muscle growth potential. So if you want to get the literal most out of a given set, you should train to failure. Interestingly, volume has a similar relationship in that volume allows you to multiply the signal of a given set. So if one set taken to failure gives you the most stimulus from a given set and you want more stimulus, well, you should do more sets. And the way you accomplish that is via volume, by increasing your volume and performing more sets. So they are related in the sense that they allow you to provide a greater stimulus to your body. So if we're seeking to maximize muscle growth and we're seeking to get the most stimulus out of a given set, what type of failure should we reach for? What definition should we adhere to? And I think here the answer is clear: muscular failure, because we're trying to grow our muscles. And so when performing an exercise, you should ensure that the targeted musculature is that which fails. So if you're performing a bicep curl with the intent of growing your bicep should fail, not your forearm, not your wrist, not your shoulder, not your grip, but your bicep. This can be a bit more complicated with compound movements. So for example, if you're performing a bench press, your delts are involved, your chest is involved, your triceps are involved, your upper back is stabilizing the movement even if it's not a primary mover. And so all of this musculature is involved and different muscles will fail at different moments. However, nonetheless, if the goal is to build the most muscle possible, when performing a compound movement, you should be targeting specific muscles. You should be performing the bench press to grow your chest and your delts, and those should be the limiting factors. Because again, we're trying to grow muscle, and if we want to get the most stimulus out of a given set, we want to take those sets to muscular failure. Now, of course, you don't always have to take every set to failure. That's not what this video is about. This video is just about explaining how you should approach and conceptualize failure training. So again, for bodybuilding, for maximizing hypertrophy, your goal when seeking to maximize the stimulus of a given set should be to take that set to muscular failure. Not form failure, not technical failure, not cardiovascular failure. Although I do want to make a note about cardiovascular failure. Some trainees like to perform high rep sets. I like to perform high rep sets too. I think they can have a lot of advantages. They allow you to improve your cardiovascular capabilities. They teach grit and resilience, and they can be useful for alleviating joint pain because you have to use lighter loads. However, sometimes high rep sets can be limited by your cardiovascular capabilities. So when performing high rep sets, I think conceptually you should think about them in one of two ways. One, just think of them as cardiovascular training and accept that the muscular gains you make may be subpar. Or two, get really fucking good at cardiovascular training, and this will enable you to do high rep sets and have your muscles be the limiting factor. I think the second goal is an awesome goal because it will mean that you are both fit and muscular. So just keep that in mind when considering your options for training to failure. Now, what I really want to talk about here is psychological failure, because psychological failure really is the boogeyman. This really is the challenge that all of us must face when seeking to get the most out of our sets. Because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I totally trained to failure. It's another thing to actually do it and to be able to do it at any time in any given circumstance. Because the truth is, for most of us, we have lives, we have responsibilities, we have stressors. And when we show up at the gym, we're not always able to demonstrate our full athletic capabilities. Right, like the example I gave in the beginning of this video. Maybe we had a shitty day and we just don't feel like going to the gym. Or maybe we start a set, we feel that weight in our hands and we get scared and we panic and we do weird things. We start to rush reps, we start to cheat reps, and ultimately we don't achieve muscular failure because we've made shortcuts. We've found ways subconsciously to make those movements easier. Now I want to give you an example of how a high-level athlete performs an incredibly challenging set. This is Dan Green. Dan Green is a world-class powerlifter. In this clip, he's about to rep 628 pounds for 12 on a beltless squat. This is superhuman levels of strength, superhuman levels of performance, and superhuman levels of grit. So let's watch now. Dan takes a moment before he starts to steady his breath, and he immediately begins. His first rep is clean. It doesn't look particularly hard, although of course it is. Remember, this is 628 pounds. His second rep, his third rep, they all basically look the same. As he enters into his fourth rep, you can see there's already some slowdown in his concentric. As he's pushing out of the hole, there's just a little bit more resistance. That fifth rep was even slower. And the sixth rep, you can really tell he's already having to work. He's concentrating. His focus is gathering. And this continues throughout the set. There's a slight slowdown, as I mentioned, that sixth rep, but then he seems to kind of rally. He's really able to push through it, and you're not seeing significantly greater slowdown as he's performing this set. It's almost as if he's tapped into something. He's not really facing the same difficulties. Although as the set continues, he is starting to slow down a bit more, and you notice he's taking a bit more of a break between each rep. But nonetheless, his form is not decaying. His form isn't shifting. He's not moving his feet. He's not moving his legs. The only thing you really notice in that set is towards the very end, his eccentric speeds up just a little bit, and I think this enables him to get just a little bit of an elastic bounce out of the bottom of the squat. But at no point does his form decay, at no point does he shift the weight back to his hips. He's still performing the same squat that he was on rep 12, that he was on rep 1. And this kind of a performance is incredible. This is not something that most people could do. Most people would feel that fear, and even if they were somehow physically capable of doing 12 reps, they wouldn't be able to do it. They wouldn't be able to push through that psychological discomfort. They wouldn't be able to silence that voice in their head that says, holy fuck, this weight is heavy and I am scared. But Dan Green maintains composure and pushes through until the end. And so here's the question. Do you have to do this to gain muscle? Do you have to be this good at grinding and maintaining composure to make gains? And the answer is no, but it sure as shit helps. There is no denying that that set was incredibly stimulative. And if you could perform sets of a similar quality, you would be able to expose your body to the same level of stimulus. Luckily, this is a trainable adaptation. Grinding, grit, focus, determination, these are trainable attributes. I don't know Dan Green personally, but I guarantee you he has gotten better at this throughout his training career, and you can do the same. Perhaps the best and easiest way for you to tap into this is to start thinking about your level of arousal or your level of hype as you're performing a lift. Think about how excited you are before you get under the bar. Are you nervous? Are you scared? Are you happy? Are you elated? And you should start to map those feelings to your performance. So here's what I mean. Generally speaking, in terms of my personality, I am a happy person. My disposition is positive. And for me, when I'm at the gym and I'm performing my best, I am ecstatic. I am exuberant and joyful. I am happy to be there. And so I don't focus and harness negative energy. I don't get angry before I perform a set. I don't think about things that piss me off. I do the opposite. I will dance. I will move around and have fun. And I will smile. As I'm completing a set and feeling good, I will subconsciously smile. And this is something I've learned over time. And now that I know this about myself, I will lean into these behaviors. I will use my positive energy. I will use my joy, and I will channel it into my training and let it drive me and push me through those difficult moments. I don't know Dan's psychology. I don't know what he thinks about, but I am certain he does something similar. He channels some part of his emotional core and he allows it to drive him forward through those difficult moments. And you can do the same. Again, the way you start this is just by being observant. Pick up on your own patterns. Notice how you perform when you're feeling a certain way, and then seek to amplify and exaggerate those feelings. Because if you can start to manipulate your own psychology, you can guarantee that you won't fail because of your mind, but instead, you'll fail because of your muscles. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate you.